for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. Once again, I'm back in my spot, in my sacred space. I'm in my homeland for a short while. I don't know how long, but things are very shifting right now. They're very out in the open, and I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to actually upload this video. So you're probably going to see it with a bit of or some more of the lag behind. You're going to see past in the future, or everything in the now, as you know, in real timing, as it's finally able to be presented, because where I'm right now, I don't have internet, and it's not really good use of it, because it's just a transition space. So I figured, I'm going to wait a while with making such big choices. It's a fine line now. Things feel very weird, because before it was all like this, this journey and pilgrimage, which was a lot of waiting behind the scenes. And now it feels things are kind of wrapping up and speeding up, and they are reaching their conclusion and completion, but it's still on time yet, in a way. So I'm in that process of, what's next, because when you know that things are just temporary, it's still not as big of a decision when you're actually looking for a permanent base, your next location, your next stability, next stable ground. So I want to talk about what precedes that as an external unfolding, and what recently I received about my path as a creation pillar. So first things first, when I came here in my sacred space, I came to my homeland, as you know, in this transition space, and I started receiving energetic surges of light and reconnection back to my space, and instructions that I need to root myself or anchor myself back here. It was all so sudden, because the moment I come to my homeland, it's like an instant ignition, which is interesting, because before I felt like a wandering wanderer for like 4 to 5 months, and nowhere felt like home. And even here, it's funny, right? It's a strange thing now, because when I came here now, after I've already uprooted myself, it feels, in terms of my nature and this space, this portal here, this locale basically is my creation pillar, which I was working on building or co-creating for 7 years, and it's big. And the guidance I received is, now it's time for me to receive back from my pillar, because before it was like making those light filaments, right? Light depositions, like making each time a deposit. So it was so much joy and love and nourishment and productivity, creativity that went into this pillar, because everything I did went into this space. And then I uprooted myself, and I asked myself, why did I need this experience anyway? Because you know that this took me on this Christ pilgrimage, which for my human self, it was the biggest, like very huge initiation, probably most important initiation of my life, as before, everything that preceded my knowing of myself as a creation pillar. And now this, which came after, was so important in terms of myself, for the self, for my mission. So it was a very interesting thing to realize that this journey was self-created. And I actually, one day, I sat down after a few nature walks, and I just received very clear directions, basically directives, that it's time now, that I need to anchor myself back here. But at the same time, it didn't feel like it's time to live here, because locale and surroundings, the environment, the society there, it doesn't feel like home anymore, which was a very strange feeling. There were like two conflicting forces within me. One was the very natural organic home, which is energetic for me here, the pillar that I've created. And the other one is physical in nature, which doesn't resonate anymore, because I know there's a clear reason why I jumped off, and I wanted to uproot myself. But there's something of a learning curve that they've shown me, basically my spirit team, but mostly my spirit mother, which I know as Aurea. She is the essence of the Elohim light family, and everything I receive from her and through her, because I was birthed as her human extensions through her womb. So basically, the moment I sat there, I went on this mountain cliff and I received this clear guidance. It's time now here, because I asked, why am I even here now? What's the purpose? I know everything so far has been purposeful, but why am I here now? And at the very same moment, I received this clear calling that it's time to resurrect Aurea now, like to really pull her forth and pull her through, because in this last few months, I just didn't feel like myself. Like I told you, I was stumbling, and it felt like half of me is missing or somewhere else. Well, basically always here, probably dormant, dominant here. And so I came here and I knew this to be true. And then one day after, I sat down with a piece of paper, which, you know, it's my sacred notebook, and I always get the clearest directives and guidance when I start the automatic writing process, because the mind is not engaged in a similar fashion. For me, I don't receive as much when I meditate. I don't use meditation for that. I use meditative space to cultivate life force and do pulsar technique. But in this automatic writing kind of guidance, I basically channel forth from my spirit through her, through the womb of Aurea. So I received this very important information that this uprooting myself was a big experience. It was almost like an experiment that I needed to have, because it was multidimensional. At the human child level, for my inner human self, this was an experience of longing. So I was basically told that there was an aspect of myself, my human counterpart, that still didn't feel fully whole, and it needed something else. So it longed for an experience, because, you know, quite the opposite before. For a year and a half to up to 2 years, I was just anchored there in that village. I didn't even have a car. As you know, that was one experience that my human self needed to have to feel how it is to be just in one space. And that produced a kind of longing. It produced a certain need to have a different experience. So I started longing for certain things that before, at my previous years here, I just didn't need anything. I was just so happy here. And this almost like created a desire within the soul. And my spirit, as unconditionally loving that it is, the Mother Aurea, she fulfilled that wish, fulfilled that dream to this inner child part. But at the same level, this was a learning curve. It was an experience of my Christhood, how to be completely detached. I mean, non-attached, because detachment in truth is, it doesn't come through feeling. It's a different state of being than being non-attached. Okay? So you're still feeling, but it's still coming through love, but you're not attached to what you're experiencing. It's almost like it becomes a higher version of yourself, a bigger, wider experience. So it felt this whole time like I'm observing myself. It was different. It was like living my spirit and my human, but it didn't reach full integration yet, right? And I'm not sure whether, well, human here on earth, it's ever going to be fully reached or fulfilled. I'm not sure, because it is a part of the experiment of love and illumined union. So this wish, this desire was granted. So this inner longing needed to have its fulfillment in order for this part to eventually become whole in itself and complete. And I realized that the moment I started longing for this home again, and I realized there's nothing elsewhere for me, nothing out there, nothing I need to have as an experience outside of this, which was already my highest life. The cultivation of the kind of life that suits me best, that serves my inner child, my human self, and its highest life expression. So we all have those aspects, right, that feel, oh, there's still something missing. So the spirit, as unconditional it receives and understands that as the highest input, and there creates its highest output, right, the demand or the request being received by spirit, then creating that opportunity for ourselves and our human nature. So in that way, that experience was provided for, hence the pilgrimage, right, journey. And the little human didn't know basically how difficult that's going to get, because in truth, that was a part of the learning, that was backdoor, right, behind the visual or the very distinct expression of what the human self longed for. So in other terms, the experience was much different. It was wider, it was richer, which is kind of like how spirit actually answers the call. So it does fulfill the desire, but let me say it's in a little different version. So it's It's wider. So at the same time, it's like Spirit would say, yeah, we're going to fulfill your desire. But at the same time, it's not going to be just for what you want and you think it's best for you, but there's going to be much more in the experience. So that was how I experienced this journey, this pilgrimage, and how it came through me. A lot more was birthed than that original longing for having a more integrated space of living and this and that. But at the same time, when the experience was complete, I no longer wanted to be anywhere else. Like, this is not for me. So I was seeking outside of myself and seeking a perfect place that would match me somehow in my living expression, the way I am, and nothing matched me, which was very difficult. So now coming back here, I'm already matched. I'm already mirrored directly because I was here for 7 years and I did create this pillar space and it was already perfect for me. But there is now a longing for a new experience, and yet this experience at this time now does not come from a space of longing for something else outside of me. It is just the sameness of what is already like stable aspect of me, which means that that infinite self, which is, you know, the core of self, the core foundation is always the same, is that transfixed aspect of the self, but in a new shape and format, so that diversity now can be experienced, but the core remains or remaining the same, if you know what I'm talking about. So this is what was realized. The next thing I realized is I was shown that the creation pillar always needs the pillar. We need the pillar because we create everything from it. We generate currents of life force from the pillar, so we directly receive from the pillar. And at the same time, we do our own little human deposits through our light body transference into the pillar itself. So that's it has to be this quite beautiful infinite looping. But in order for me to have an experience of that polarity, what happens if that's not the case, I desired to uproot myself. So I was not anchored anywhere for those few months, which for me was the most difficult aspect to experience about myself. But let me tell you again, the experience of Christ within our own mission and how we are designed through Source. We're each different facets of life, as you well know. So what I'm talking about, I'm sharing for myself, but you're already, as you know, you're totally different. But sameness of the core remains. So it's like, you know, when you reach something, and once you reach a certain level, you're not on the full spectrum mastery yet, because you haven't achieved, almost like you need to now, once you've achieved it, see yourself above this experience. It's almost like you need to hover above it to witness it. So first you achieve it, then you need to witness it as it is achieved from a space of being also not achieved at the same time. It's so difficult for me to explain this as the way I'm receiving it through spirit and trying to put it through with words. But it's like we have levels and steps of these masterful initiations of ours that grow our soul through our spirit into the body, right? So it's always the Trinity flame of the human, the soul, or the body, the soul, and spirit. Well, a lot of people think, well, I'm working with spirit. A lot of the times, most of the times, it can be very mental. And it's just aspects of the higher mind we're working with. That's not the spirit. And hence, when I'm beyond this threshold, when I'm on the other side and I get a new home, a new locale and everything, I want to start teaching this because it's such a growing experience for me, and I've blossomed through it in a way, you know, and I can teach these things now. The differences between working with higher levels of mind consciousness versus pure spirit. And as you know, my first course when I started doing mastery courses is how to work with spirit, because spirit is not like our ancestors in spirit, or, you know, the mediumship realms or the astral planes. That's not spirit. Spirit is only, like, when we say the Holy Spirit, it's the mother aspect, the mother essence that birthed our soul. You can't even relate it with the I am presence. For me, I am feels very masculine, you know, even the words Christ. But the mother spirit, it's like that pure womb of love through which we were birthed. So the closest I can associate myself with this is the Tantrika, right? So now, where I'm now in this stage, I've been shown that things will turn around now for me, and I'm already doing it. through this anchoring myself back, but also harnessing the resurrection of Aurea, so the spirit needing to descend through, again, this anchoring process, because otherwise it can't. So it was just like a wandering, a blindfolded fool or blind man, right, through the desert. And I think that's also one of the beautiful associations we have with the masters, right? 40 days in the desert. Like for me, it wasn't 40 days, it was much longer. But it's different associations that already exist that can be like similarly viewed about this process. So what I was shown about where I'm now is realizing that uprooting myself and being not anchored for a while, I could literally see the power of being anchored, which before was self-evident, it was self-obvious, and I couldn't harness the potential of it because it's almost, when you achieve something the first time, you're still a fool receiving your graduation for the first time, right? Then you need to like apply the wisdom of it. Like once I was told about compassion, and Spirit said to me, you can have the purest state of compassion, but you still haven't learned fully how to use it in this earth plane, in the earth terms or terminology. Things can still be very wobbly, and you don't know like how to grant higher levels of compassion and like how to act with other people through compassion. It's not always so black and white. This is where wisdom comes from, the growing pain and the growing experience. So I was shown how to really grow through our spirit. So spirit grows our soul, and our soul becomes enriched, and then the human counterpart receives that, and that is truly the trinity of our sacredness, of our embodiment process. So which I call the Lumen Union and the Christ embodiment. And it's a journey. It's really such a journey, and there is no equal path. I mean, we're all equal in the essence of it all, but each of these steps and our journeys is so diverse and so unique. So I was shown how these stages of being myself, like in my case, I'm a creation pillar, and pillars have a certain state and understanding and consciousness. I'm sometimes dealing with stuff of conscious knowing that most people don't even have to deal with. They don't even have the understanding about it, because this is just my own. That's what I'm talking about. Certain aspects that are sacred to us, they're only understood and applied by us because we are of that domain, right? So speaking about that, this now means that it has, every one of us has stages of those initiations, and how we pass them and how they're being applied to our own embodiment process. So in my case, right, first I have to really wake up who I am, remember the nature of my purpose as a creation pillar. As you know, in that part of my journey, I shared a lot about this. I shared so much awareness, even did a video. Remember, I did this video, The Mission of Creation Pillars, and I did these beautiful alpine recordings and videos from all around the globe. No, just all around the Alps, where I've traveled, where my foot has actually stepped. So this was one stage, and there was so many others. And then for a few years, I had to just pour a light quotient into it, creating this pillar. And finally, right at the verge of it, you would think, now I'm going to reap rewards from it, but then I will shoot myself like a rocket outside of the pillar, being lost and confused and being this vagabond traveler, which I never really resonated with as an archetype because it's not of my domain. I was never kind of like, people who are gypsy travelers and go on the road and all of those things. I love these adventures, but I need to be anchored at the same time. So for me, that's my nature, and it's how I function. And when I function like this, when I operate through my spirit, everything flows, abundance, everything I receive from it. I don't receive it through what we call, the work we do. For me, it's the life force that brings this as a cultivation, received from spirit first, and then moving through the pillar, and then I receive it as a human. But I need to do and walk diligently these steps, right? I need to devotedly know what I'm doing. And only by knowing myself, by fully knowing how my process really works, I can be abundant and I can flourish, and I can also pass this wisdom on to others, and I can teach and I can inspire, right? Without that, it's like, what the heck am I doing here? And hence such confusion when for myself, I had to observe myself and my human counterpart, when it was like wondering about, because at the same time I felt like I'm a spirit. I can see all of it. I can see the struggles neutrally, but at the same time, I was the one living it. And this is this polarity of spirit and the human nature, right? Humanity in us. So this divine child, this human, was stumbling and having these adventures and recognizing itself in a new format once it already achieved this. And the process now is anchoring back in order to feel and see the power of the pillar, the power of how simply I function just by knowing myself, and how you can receive and be abundant just by knowing yourself. And hence, I always teach life force mastery work above all and anything else. Because once you do that, and you know the most ancient techniques that already exist are perfect, but you can also develop your own, is connecting to the core essence of who you are. And once you're connected to that core essence through the mother spirit, you will never confuse that with even like higher aspects of the mind. You know, there's people who would confuse that with lower aspects of the mind because they're still predominantly existing very much in ego or very much separate or fragmented aspects of the self. But once you're very conjured up, which means you're very synthesized being, you're very organic, you start to flow, you will recognize the difference, right? You will know how working with spirit feels and what would be, let's say, the lesser mind or even the higher aspects of the mind or the heart. It's all different aspects of the self, but we must not put them all in the same box or categorize them in a way that's false. And hence, I would really, once I'm across the threshold, start doing this work, you know, in a way teaching, demonstrating this to people who are not so organically fluent in this recognition yet. So let me go back to these stages, right? So first, this awakening, remembering, starting to co-create with my own natural design. You know, there's many people who apply different almost like analytical aspects of these personality traits and who you are as a being, astrology, Mayan approaches, other cultures, right? They develop these systems. Recently, someone was telling me about these systems, right? And how you can apply yourself through them. And I never really fully resonated with that because we're not just that system that someone developed. We're pure spirit eventually, right? When you get to that core essence of who you are, who we are. And that's why for me, the most fundamental thing for us to truly be the human we want to be, the lumen human, is to recognize how life force best flows through us. So when I started doing this work back, right, when I did this phase, I understood, I came to the highest top, the peak. And I even said many times to people who mean a lot to me or I can trust them, I said, do you know how it is once you're already at your peak and then suddenly you're not anymore? How devastating this feels like. So this was something I guess I feel, not just believe, but I feel strongly my own human had to experience. And in order for me to resurrect and learn how to resurrect back. Because at the same time, what the human had this experience, the spirit also had its experience. And I received another answer or guidance, which was that my spirit wanted to prove to itself, because it's a sovereign spirit, that it can do anything, even uproot itself, if that's the desired quest, if that's the desired next step to take. And it trusted itself so deeply that once this is so, even if that's in a way detrimental to the human aspect, currently, you know, that from the highest level looks like a blink of an eye or, you know, tweaking of the eyelashes. But in truth, it's long enduring in terms of the growth that's being cultivated from that experience. So it was so interesting to observe that and receive these answers. And I received them the moment I came to my homeland, which is when I recognized that here the journey of the pilgrimage ends. And hence, meaning I need to anchor myself back. So it didn't have these aspects that when you go somewhere to live permanently, like internet, enough room, this and that. But once again, I had the sacred space. The whole world here is my oyster. And I felt, wow, this is where I do my spirit work. And I went, the first time I received this calling guidance to this tree of life, I call it the tree of life because it has a specificness to it that no other tree I've ever seen has, because sometimes this water runs through it, and it's right in this mountain valley. And the moment I saw it for the first time, the water running through it, I'm like, that's the tree of life. And that morning I woke up and I seen my coffee cup, a tree growing from rocks from the mountains, and I knew where I had to go. And luckily I just had my blood, right? Because it was the full moon in Aries, which was such a launch, such a rocketing experience. It was fiery, fierce moon. And I was like, wow, I need to take this. It was just like an instant response. It's like, I just found it there. It really was moved with me. I don't even remember when I did it. I was so happy because, you know, the blood of the Christ, your codes of vitality of the body. So like the vessel for the flow in your body is the blood vessels, right? That's what they're called, vessels in a way. Veins or vessels for me in my terminology. And they're this life force translation through our blood. Like it resembles the life force translation through the water. That's the water that's always there, that we don't even originally know it's where it's coming from, the water source from pure mountain springs and waterfalls. So I went there and I did the spiral with the blood, and then took the water and did the cross, like anchoring myself back there. And I started speaking again, then ancient language, the elemental primordial language, when the Elohim is waking up the elements. And I felt the elementals. Then I felt some star energies and star beings coming through lastly. And the language is changing a bit, you know, when I speak it. So was a very interesting experience. And afterwards I felt such warmth and electricity coming through my feet. It was pulsating and I was just so happy. I felt so blessed. Not knowing where to go next, I still know there's newness, there's novelty coming, and I'm clueless as to, you know, where, when I'm speaking, when I'm making this video. When you see it, I don't know what happens then, because it's obviously going to come much later. But I'm recording it now because I like to speak about the things that are happening in real time. Because if I'm trying to memorize them, like what happened a while ago, I'm speaking from the mind. But now I'm speaking from the now, speaking from the body, right? The synthesis of it all, because I'm right in the middle of it now. That's why I wanted to pre-record this. So it was quite a journeying experience. And the moment I did that, I received again 3 days of doing this. I'm always doing things in threes. So they're saying 3 days, dedicate just to anchor yourself back. And this means wherever I go next will be like me pulled, connected into this pillar. So I'll never uproot myself again. That was an experience. And it was literally, Spirit is saying, if that's the case, if this is what's wanted, let's show that I can do it. Because then I'm going to show that I can anchor myself right there, right back instantly. This is how powerful Spirit is. This is what it means working with the Mother Spirit. This is your own essence. This is basically what resurrects us. This is basically what it's the purest form of organic ascension. I was told a while ago that I already know how to exit my body at will if I want to, but I'm not going to do it until I'm fully complete in my mission. So I'm like, no, why? You know? But it's like, I fully trust that guidance. It's like the soul has been anointed with the light of Spirit, and it follows Spirit. Not every soul is like this. You know, illumined souls, like beings who have illumined souls, it's like we're truly connected, would merge with the immaculate nature and design of our spirit. Hence, maybe our life journeys are a little bit complex, because Spirit is always the one with the final word. But in a way that also is, you know, it's like that motherly nature that's very approachable. It's not like some dominant feminine figure lying there somewhere in this armchair, being like put on the pedestal. There's like someone who's approachable, down to earth. So that true nature of our Mother Spirit comes to meet us halfway, like what's been performed with my own inner human child. Like the desire was fulfilled, but at the same time there was also a lot of the back door activity happening that grew my soul even more, and it's like grew the human soul, right? The soul of the human. So our soul is truly multidimensional. So when I say it grew the human soul, it means like if I'm purely spirit, and for me in my case, I was never on earth before, I need to now grow my human soul. And I'm doing it all in one lifetime, very rapidly. So my experiences throughout my whole life have been very intense because I wanted to, from the soul perspective, grow into it very fast. It's like, yeah, I want the whole spectrum so I can do it as fast as I can. That's why the intensity of living has been immense in my case. So look at this diversity, right? From a year and a half up to 2 years of nothing, just being fixed in the same space all the time, not even going anywhere else. No car, nothing, not even good connections, right? Because it's a very remote place. Now, on the other hand, just 5 months, like 4 to 5 months, moving 5 times. It's like, what the heck? You see how diverse this is. And both of these experiences cultivated something in the soul, right? The richness of soil, right? Soil, soul, very similar, right? These words, when we speak them out. And so recognizing that working with spirit is always being with what's your next step, what spirit wants and its intention is with you. I once asked this question, why am I still here on earth? And I received a very clear answer again. Aurea, my spirit mother, is not finished with me. She has plans with me. She has a higher plan. She has a plan with wisdom, right? Sophia, goddess of wisdom, the essence of wisdom. So we don't always know that as a human, but when we follow the steps and we're really aware of our process, and I've been marking my process for years now, I never just do things without any awareness. Even when I'm struggling, I always do the awareness work. I process things right away. It's like the human is very, my human self is very much a good student. It needs to pay attention. And in my case, I need to pay attention very diligently because otherwise I get lost because my life is intense and spirit works a lot through me. So I have to be a good student. I have to be always alert with my little, beep, beep, beep. So yeah, it is what it is. So it's been very interesting now and following these facts and realizing that the next step will be probably once I anchor myself to expand the pillar, which is kind of like being anchored here, but at the same time, instead of uprooting myself, just expanding the pillar. So that, I believe, would be the next step. I'm not sure yet how, because I always receive from spirit when I'm in it. We sometimes all have questions in advance, like what happens if and when that is complete or when I'm done with this. But spirit will always not give you ahead of what you're doing and working with right now, which is something else they showed me today. It's like when the soul encodes things, right? We've talked about this in the previous video I did. The soul encodes the journey. So imagine the soul encodes the fulfillment of a specific circle, which we call a specific cycle of life that we have to go through. And imagine a membrane around the cycle. And only once the cycle is fully complete and fulfilled, we actually reach a state of touching upon that membrane. We merge with it. So at that point, we have to fully merge with what's left. And everything is encoded in the membrane. So all the answers that we receive for the next step are held in that membrane, right? It's like the entire circle, that the spirit circle has to be integrated. It has to be like we absorb it within ourselves. And then these answers come automatically because often we find ourselves at different points of the circle. We're not there yet. We haven't fully performed the synthesis part. And we want these answers and we're going to seek them in other people, in sessions, in cards, in pendulum. We've all done that. It's what makes us beautifully human. But these answers all come organically and so super fast, automatically, once we've touched upon the integration with this membrane. It's the fastest, easiest way for me to explain this. So it's very beautiful. And you can see me, right? When I'm in this natural space of mine, I'm glowing and I'm happy here. I'm so happiest here. Comparing with the other videos, right? 6 previous videos I've done in the meantime, and a few maybe more. It's like, what the heck? Is this a different person? No, it's all me. But when I come here, it's like I'm literally pulling from my pillar right away. And I first needed to re-anchor back, and I'm now during this process. And then I'm going to learn, and probably going to be learning how to expand this pillar. Doesn't mean, well, now I can only live here. If I go elsewhere, then, no. It's step by step learning for the human self. Because this is difficult. My mission is quite difficult. Not everyone is a creation pillar. So it's been a training. It's been, my whole life has been like a clueless journey of knowing. Like first you're clueless, then you walk the journey, then you're a knower. And then again, you're clueless, and then you're nowhere, right? The middle of the circle, then the membrane, when the knowing returns. And that knowing catapults the expansion into the next cycle, the next potential held in the next membrane. And this is how the soul expands. So imagine like expanding our lung capacity, which is what we also do with the Kriya Yoga or with the Life Force Mastery integration embodiment. So this is what I wanted to share with you all. The sun is slowly going down because we are in the Alps, and here the fall and winter months don't have as much sun as elsewhere. Somewhere at the sunny side, which is, whew, I would like some warmth now. I'm gonna do some walking because I'm kind of cold now. But I really hope this video gets uploaded in divine timing as always. And remember, this will be with a little or a little more lag behind. But whatever you see it, it means it's meant to be seen. And Spirit always works in wondrous ways. You know, when the magic returns in me, when I'm getting my insights back, when things start making sense, this is when I know I'm approaching the membrane part of the cycle. So this few months have been like a clueless, what the heck do I need to experience here? And there is no, little cheat sheet here. You can't push it. You can rush ahead of yourself or ahead of the cycle. Eventually things come together. Eventually things come into their fullness and completion of what was set about through the soul. And you start imprinting on the new. And for me, when it starts to click and all starts to synthesize together, it means I'm approaching that expansion into this new diaphragm of the lungs, of the soul expanding, and also newness coming forth. But remember, always, we are still on that threshold, and in that space we're a little more vulnerable, which is what I'm also experiencing now. And you're also wondering, but what comes next? But what if this happens? What if I'm not ready? What if I don't know where to go next? All these questions, because we're always assuming by other experiences or the previous experiences. And in truth, we have to come right back into the space of now and realize that working with the Mother Spirit is based on pure trust, which means Spirit has its own divine timing. All you need to do is walk through the process and be fully in the now during the process. Don't be in the past or too much in the future. I've also received very interesting guidance about how to feel into that through the anchoring process. And I've asked, how do I do that? How do I realize the feeling, right? Because I felt different things at the same time. I didn't feel connected with this place anymore, right? This town and village is like, ugh, I don't like it. I know what I went away the first time. But the nature, it's like, oh, I'm home, it's this diversity. And then Spirit told me, it said, don't think about your associations with this place, like your description of it, or think about how you used to feel here or how you want to feel here. Think about the flow. Like the flow of life force that you were able to cultivate here throughout these years. How does this flow feel? So when I was walking along the mountain river gorge, I was just thinking of the flow, generating that flow and cultivating a space of that infinite amount of love. Beyond the circumstances, beyond the apparent, beyond the seen, the visual. This is how this place is like. This is how things function here. These are the people living here. This is how I used to feel here. Spirit said, now only focus on being in that flow, remembering how the flow of life force feels and when it's at your maximum capacity, in order for you to bring that flow back. And through that flow, you're actually anchoring yourself. So maybe that helps some of you. And if you don't even know what I'm talking about, I would really suggest starting at the Life Force Mastery level, which is also why years ago I prepared these courses for all of you, so we can all go through this process in our own moderation. Like, I'm very much, as you know, I'm always ahead of the game. I'm always like super fast. But people find themselves at different levels. So if in any time and point you need assistance, just go out and make the request, or you can find these Life Force Mastery courses on my page, Serapina Light. And the moment I'm settled and in my new permanent, I hope this time really permanent residence, I will I will reactivate my work again, no sooner, no later, but it is what it is. So I will update you when this is so. You're all going to be updated. And yeah, that's it for now. Think about the flow. Don't focus so much on circumstances and how they are. Remember, we're always creating our own circumstances by generating the flow of love, that infinite divine love, no matter the circumstances or the outside appearances or the outside world, as we see it. But we're always needing to be brought back to the unseen, the inner realm, the inner magic. and the magic of that playful creativity that our inner child always feels when it's corresponding and co-creating with this world. So it's more of a co-creation than looking at it from an outside way, how other people exist here and how they are and how they live. Sometimes, people will say things like, oh, this place sucks, or this is like that, and you're immediately tuning into their perspective. But this is like, make that turnaround, make that shift, be with your spirit, and then see how you feel and generate the flow here. When things flow for you, where things flow for you, this is your maximum capacity. This is, for me, this has been harnessed as this pillar. But now I'm also learning how myself to receive from it, not like needing to work hard for it like I did those years back. That's why Spirit is reminding me, don't think about how you used to be here and felt here. Feel the flow now and see the guidance coming through now at the stage where you're now, because we're always shifting those stages. Remember that. So, my beloveds, those of you who are more interested in becoming higher, more advanced spirit initiates, you want to go beyond just the human norm and how to manifest, you want to become the badass spirit. You want to grow through your spirit and enrich your soul and become the illumined human. You are always welcome to join my Patreon page. And if not, I'll see you next time. But I really hope to resurrect my work. But first, I'm doing this resurrection of Aurea and my embodiment, where I am now. And I'm greeting you from this beautiful space. It's still some sunny vibrations left. And again, as always, with my highest devotion, with so much love, beauty, and wisdom and power. Take care, and I'll see you when I do. Mwah. Bye for now.